Okay, thank you, everyone. We have a quorum calling this meeting back into session. Murat, did you log in? I think you're the only one I'm missing. All right, not yet. Okay, and I see Bill Day has joined us as well. So we are at 11 right now, once Murat comes online. Okay, up first. Actually, Gina, you have item number 3.
Okay. I recommend that minutes pertaining to the potential litigation of the transportation contract remain sealed.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Craig, seconded by Catherine. Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Abstaining or recusal? Okay, I see none, and that carries unanimously. This brings us to item 4, which is the disclosure of executive session votes.
Okay, Chair, we had 2 votes in executive session. The first vote was of the minutes for the executive session of June 16th, 2020. We had 9 in favor and 1 abstention. In favor, Callahan, Abbott, Chambers, Pusti, Johnson, Lyall, Macruso, McAllister. Abstaining, Luzon. And the second and final vote was to return to regular session. It was 10 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions, 0 recusals. In favor, Callahan, Abbott, Chambers, Dimoff, Pusti, Johnson, Lyall, Macruso, McAllister, and Luzon.
Thank you. Okay, this brings us to public forum. Before I open it up for folks, do want to let everybody know at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a participants icon. Please click that. It'll bring up a list on your right. At the bottom of that, there's an icon that allows you to raise your hand. That's how I know you have something to say. If I call on you, please state your name and what town you're from. Okay, I see there is a hand raised. I do not know who this is. It's the number 401-458-0018.
Hello. Hello, Ryan. It's Barbara Capalbo from Hopkinton.
Hey, Barbara.
Hi there. This is Public Forum. I just wanted to say to the school committee that I'm hoping that you will keep a lot of this blended learning that you have been working with over the last several months. I think that combination of all the learning processes have been very good for any number of students in any number of ways. And I realize it's very difficult and it's complex for you to follow a lot of that, but I am hoping that the teachers and the administration will continue to research and study and create these opportunities for all of the students, both high performing and middle of the road and whomever else. I think it has worked out very well. It was quite a surprise, and I know it was extraordinarily difficult, but I am hoping that you will stay on this track and develop it as you shall. I'm interested this evening in hearing where you think you're going and what you think you're going to be attempting. But I did want to encourage it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for public forum? And if you're not speaking, please mute your phone. Thank you. I would like to say something for public forum. Craig, would you please take the chair position?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So as a parent, I hope all of you see your packet, and in the back of it, there's an FYI section. And in that section, there's a letter from Mrs. Hooper. a second grade teacher at Richmond Elementary who's retiring. As a parent whose son and daughter both spend time in her second grade class, I just wanted to publicly acknowledge how outstanding she is and how much my kids absolutely loved her. We'll miss her. We'll miss her at Richmond. And I just wish her the absolute best in this, this next adventure she's starting out on. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that. Thank you so much, Ms. Hooper. Mr. Luzon, if
You're
it's
the
okay, I'd
chair,
like to take
sir.
the chair back.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. I see another hand has come up, 5002, the last four of the phone number.
Hi, my name is Clifford Hale, and I'm from Hopkinton. And I was just curious, and I'm not sure, this is the first time I've participated in one of these meetings or listened in. I saw recently that the Chair Ho budget passed. I know that it passed in Hopkinton and also in Richmond and Charlestown, but I also saw some comments about whether or not the vote would be legal since it wasn't held, all three towns didn't hold a vote on the same day. So I didn't know if that would be addressed in this meeting or if I should look for that information somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. It's actually not listed on our agenda for tonight, so it's not something that we will be speaking to this evening. But it's a great question, and we'll make sure it's addressed at the next public meeting so that people understand how we're moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Any further public forum? All right, thank you, everybody. We will move on to business. In this case, business letter A. Gina?
So we are requesting the change to the necessity for the school construction committee, recommended based on the changes due to employment. That information is in your packet of the team.
So you recommending we approve it?
Yes, recommending approval of the changes for the construction.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Craig, seconded by Catherine. Any discussion? And just so you're all aware, I can't see everybody. So if you wave your hand at your monitor, it's going to be very difficult for me to catch you. So make sure you hit that raise hand button. I see no,
I see Bill.
George?
I'd like to ask a general question about this committee. I'd like to know if it replaces or supplants or summarizes the preliminary work for the building committee and whether we intend to have a building committee at some point.
Does it replace I think this is the building committee. No, I'm getting a head shake no. All right, Craig, you want to take this one?
This is what it is. It is the, let me look at the official title of it again. Necessity for School Construction Committee. We do the preliminary work, and then we will make suggestions to the school committee, and then the school committee will discuss, and if they determine to choose what we've suggested or go in a different direction, it's up to them to create a building. Well, it's up to the taxpayers to create a building committee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion and a second. It's on the floor. Put it before the committee. Those in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Abstaining? Recusals? All right, it's unanimous. All right, letter B.
I recommend approval for the revised music curriculum for grades K through 12.
Will we get,
Go ahead, Craig.
will we get a presentation first before we, or do you want us to move it now?
Jane's on the line, and I believe there's are some members of the team. If you'd like to sort of give an overview, Jane, about the changes and the update.
Why don't we,
You want
do
a
you want
motion
to
first?
put that into, let's put it into discussion and then we'll
Okay.
go for the review.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Craig, seconded by Donna Chambers. This is open for discussion. I'd like to give the floor to Jane Daly.
Thank you. So we have a 5-year curriculum plan in the district, and this year there were 4 curricula that we reviewed. We've already brought the world language and art to the school committee, and tonight is the music curriculum. What you'll notice in the document is that there are highlighted items in yellow. Those are all items that are new. So those are suggested as new language, and anything that has a line through it, a strike through, that's something that the committee felt needed to be deleted. The team of teachers, they would start working on this at the beginning of the year. And for the music curriculum, we had Lynn Dowding, Charles Johnson, Michelle McKee, and Dave Rigoli, who did the work on this curriculum. They're supported by our department head, our content chair, which was Mary Manning, and the humanities specialist, Dana Hall. And I believe Dana's on the call, and also our administrators, Mary Beth, Florence, Andrea Spaz, and Joe Gencarelli, all kind of help and support. Once the curriculum's written, it goes to our DCPC committee, District Curriculum Planning Council, and they review it, and they voted to approve this. And next it's brought to the superintendent, who then brings it to you. So I just thought it would be good to recap that process. For the music curriculum that we're bringing to you this evening, you're going to notice that there's changes at various grade levels, but probably the most significant changes are that new courses have been added. So these have been courses that the school committee has already approved through our course proposal process, but now this is including the curriculum in our full curriculum document. So the courses at the high school in music technology, advanced music technology, music theory, and performing arts capstone. You'll find those towards the end of the document, but that's why they're all highlighted in yellow, because those are all new added to this document. And it's nice, I just want to point out, those are actually all new courses as part of our Career Tech Performing Arts program, which was recently approved in the last, I think it was last year that was approved. So if you have any specific questions, myself and Dana, I know Andrea's on the call, we'll be happy to answer.
I see Bill Day.
Yes, I went through this quite extensively, and I had a question here. It states here in the elementary and middle school chorus, perform music up to New York State School Music Association. I went online with my limited computer knowledge, and it just seems to be an association that evaluates music in the state of New York. So I'm just wondering what the relevance is to Rhode Island by going to New York State School Music Association standards.
Bill, could I just ask what page that was on?
It's on page 49. It just says,
Thank you.
it says they'll perform up to. And I don't know what, I'm trying to figure out where the New York State School Music Association fits into this. Because they according to what I read online, they evaluate all the music programs in the state of New York. So I was just wondering how Rhode Island fits into going to their standards.
That's a good question. Dana, I don't know if you're available and if you have that answer.
Yeah, I'm here. That their system aligns with the National Coalition for Core Art Standards, and it's also aligned with what Allstate uses. So in preparation for students to compete at Allstate at our state level. That's a common form of it's called an adjudication system. I don't know if that answers your but that is aligned to a lot of the systems for judging and adjudication for our own Allstate program in Rhode Island.
Okay, it was just something that was thrown in there that didn't make sense to me because New York is a whole lot different than the way we teach in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that and to clarify. Thank you, Dana.
No problem.
Thank you. Donna Chambers.
Yeah, hi. I reviewed, I didn't probably go in as intensely as Bill did, but I reviewed the curriculum and it's a pretty dense curriculum. And I wonder if the expectation is that every child in some way play an instrument. And I noticed that you have bells and drums and but then it gets into the guitar. And is the expectation is that every child will at least have some basics in an instrument? Is that right, Dana?
Yeah, definitely. We went to great lengths to really look at our program and evolve and create a coherent structure for building students' knowledge and understanding and skills for music literacy while encouraging them to express their own music. I mean, even at the high school level as we've introduced music technology. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. If not, then I will put this to the committee. We have a motion and a
Chair.
second.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
458-0018, I think is Barbara. Her hand's been up.
Yes, thank you.
Barbara.
I wanted to thank Mrs. Daly for the introduction, especially since people are on the phone and on computers. I thought it was extremely helpful. And the reason I'm saying that is that at the first, issue before this, I had no idea what you were talking about as a public. And I was wondering if you could also, like Mrs. Daly, make sure that as you bring up a topic, since we are not in presence, to be able to explain what you're talking about, because I really wasn't sure about what you were talking about on the first issue, but I was very clear on this one, and I thank Mrs. Daly for the clarity. It helps those of us who are on phones. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Barbara. Bill Day, I saw your hand pop up and then disappear. You're good? Awesome. Thank you. Anyone I missed? Take that as a no. Therefore, we have a motion and a second to approve the revised music curriculum for grades K through 12. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Recusals? No, I'll take that as unanimous then. Thank you. Okay, this brings us to business letter C.
I'm recommending approval of the district to be given the authority to pay up to $330,000 to cover the fixed cost of our transportation needs for the spring of 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Craig. I heard a second from Catherine. This is open for discussion. Craig, and then I see Barbara again.
Chair, this doesn't sit well with me, but I realize that we're being put over a barrel. The only request I would have is that maybe someone gives a call to RIDE and asks RIDE, is this being common practice across the state of Rhode Island?
Thank you. So I'm going to give the committee members first crack at this. That means Catherine, and then I've got Donna Chambers, and then Barbara.
Brian,
Sorry,
before you move on,
George.
would you like Ned to sort of give what the hard costs are based on the conversation from Ms. Capalbo, just so they understand what that is?
Yes. So hold on a second. Let me get this order down. All right. I've got Catherine, Donna, George, and then Barbara. Ned, want to give us the rundown on the fixed costs and how it accumulated to the $330,000?
Sure. Sue helped me with pulling some of this together. This includes insurance, miscellaneous operating expenses, operating wages, maintenance expenses, maintenance wages, facilities costs, some admin expenses, and some interest expense. And all those go in to make up the total of around, the specific total is $331,482. That represents roughly 32% of what an adjusted balance would be.
Thank you, Ned.
Is that helpful?
All right, Catherine.
Thank you. I think it's important for people who are on this call to understand that what the bus company has done, in essence, is told us that unless we pay them for some of these fixed costs, they are not going to provide us with a transportation liaison, which means we are kind of stuck in terms of figuring out how we're going to transport our students in Charahoe when we open schools back up in the fall. We, as many of you know, made the decision earlier not to pay fees to the bus company because buses were not running. And in essence, what we're being told now is that if we do not pay these costs, we may be without transportation in the fall. So I'll speak for myself only, of course, but I'm uncomfortable paying these costs. However, I don't see a way around it. Yes, it feels a little bit like it's a little unfair. Certainly for taxpayers. However, I'm not overly surprised by this because I guess I anticipated something like this was coming down the pike. So this is why when taxpayers say things to us like, but you've saved so much money because the school buildings were closed, this is a prime example of why we're not going to save as much money as people may have anticipated us saving because of circumstances like this. So while I am opposed to it fundamentally, I will vote for it because I don't think that we have another option.
Thank you. Donna.
Yeah, I raised my hand because I wanted to let the taxpayers know in the same way Catherine did that we are very reluctant to pay this expense, but we have really no choice. We are over a barrel if we want to have any kind of transportation agreement and to submit with our reopening plan. I think it's dirty politics that they're doing this to us, but you know, that's the way the world goes around, and we are just really reluctant to commit to paying this kind of money, but we have no choice.
I have George Abbott next.
Yes, I can't vote for this. I see it as a comply or die demand. It's more typical of organized crime than a corporation. And you know, it sets a bad example for the children and their parents. So I'll do a protest vote against it.
Thanks, George. Murat, and then I have Lisa, Clay, Linda McAllister.
I'll be brief. I share all the feelings that previous school committee members expressed. I do feel that we're being just basically told to pay up whatever the Ocean State feels like it is. And I do feel like we really have no choice because at this point, parents do want their kids to go to school, obviously, if it's safe. And RIDE actually is telling us that the schools will be open. So we really have no choice. as far as the logistics goes. I do want to ask, though, the school committee to consider some options of maybe going to RIDE and asking for some sort of compensation, even partial, for this unforeseen expense, given the circumstances that are unusual. I will vote for it just because schools needs to be operating, but I do want to involve RIDE in trying to lessen the impact on finance of the district.
Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you.
Lisa Macruso.
So I'm going to vote against this for all the reasons that Sujana and Murat and Catherine outlined. The difference is I think that we do have some options. We just haven't explored those. As a member of the Transportation Subcommittee, we didn't convene the Transportation Subcommittee to review this and do our due diligence to consider other options and use the organization of that subcommittee to address RIDE. So everyone's right. I don't see why we need to be forced to this vote this evening. I think we should contact RIDE. I think we should ask for funding. We have a transportation subcommittee. I don't understand the force to do this tonight, especially with us all with me being uncomfortable and my fellow colleagues. So I will be voting no. It's not a protest vote. It's a very thoughtful pause. Not yet. Let's do some more thinking. We'll get back to you.
Thank you. Clay.
I just want to underscore every word that Catherine said. I'm in total agreement with Catherine.
Thank you. Linda McAllister.
I also share all the thoughts of the members in on both sides. I do feel responsible, however, to bring our kids back to school this fall if it's at all possible. And although our hands seem to be tied, but I also listen to Lisa and wonder if what is the time frame? If we don't vote on it tonight, how much time do we have in this? And I also want our other people who are in our meeting, our taxpayers, we're not the only district going through this. We're not alone in this, but it certainly speaks to the unfairness of it. So I believe I will vote for it, but with reservations. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig.
So Gina, what is our window? I have a couple of questions. What is our window of opportunity on finding a replacement till we meet the RIDE timeline?
So what we would do is we would put in the plan that, the school committee has decided to look for alternatives. And at this time, we're unable to provide a transportation plan that would allow us to do a full person return. And then we would just put it in, we would get feedback, I'm sure, that we would have to then submit. So the idea is that the feedback would come within 72 hours. And then I'm sure in that feedback would say, please submit your transportation plan. And then I don't know if, what the pushback would be other than making sure we have it. It is required. I have rolled up to RIDE that we have not had an opportunity to meet with a liaison, therefore have no transportation conversations. I can't route student buses. That's not something that we have the capability of doing. We did put out a family survey. So like many of you have said, 90% of our families anticipate wanting and needing a bus. Over about 75% would like to send their children back to school. They're either 50% saying definitely I feel comfortable, and another 25% saying I'm leaning towards sending them back. I feel, with what I know, I could send them back. We have a very small percentage of parents that are not comfortable at all, but the majority of our families, busing was the top sort of request about what's our plan. And what I continue to say is that we're in conversations, but we don't have a bus transportation yet.
And how many other options do we have as far as vendors? If I recall, John saying just 3?
So there are 3 companies in Rhode Island. One, Durham, who has just a few districts in the state. First Student, then being that the one that has a lot of districts, and then we also have the Ocean State, who we use right now. There are a few districts that have their own busing. Westerly and I believe Cranston are 2 of those districts. They run their own buses. They have their own bus yard.
So other than, that's it, other than maybe Uber or local taxi services, huh?
Well, the other thing too is with cars, as you know, if you've been to the campus with the high school and middle school, adding more cars to that will only exacerbate a already traffic jam in the morning. And that's a lot of the feedback we receive from parents without being able to roll the buses. The guidance on the buses right now has not changed. The CDC put out that we can have 1 per seat. However, we've heard from RIDE as recent as today that we should anticipate new or revised guidance on busing by tomorrow is the hopeful date, where we could have it more like 2 per seat with a mask. But we haven't gotten that guidance. Right now, it still remains 1 per seat.
Okay, and the last thing I must state is, believe it or not, in the last few months, it was wonderful to get a haircut a couple of weeks back and talk to some gentlemen at the barber. They were asking me, or they were making a statement to me, they felt we did the same thing to the bus company in the first place. And now I'm not saying, my answer to them was, well, I guess we were damned if we do, damned if we don't. I mean, we're saving the taxpayers money. Yeah, but you had a contract with them. I'm just letting you folks know that there's some people out in the greater Charahoe area that feel that we did the same thing. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with what they're proposing, but like I said before, we have no choice. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Linda Lyle.
Okay. Hello. I agree, and I feel the same way. Very frustrated as all my colleagues do tonight. I think we are sort of in a crunch timeline. I do agree with Linda McAllister that I do agree with her sentiment that we need to get the kids to school. That's our charge. I also like the idea that that John had recommended and Ned had spoken about, but we haven't said anything about that. That we are also going to make sure that that's the total amount, that they're not going to come back and try to charge us any more. I feel a little, better about that. I like Lisa's idea. I just don't know, Lisa, if we're going to have the time. We're in crunch time, so that would have probably been the best thing to do. But I'll probably vote for it, but with reservations. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe a comment from Ned. If you could tell us what is the total amount that we have withheld from the bus company to date?
Well, we stopped paying our bill based on our agreement with them. So it was based on the rates. So based on the rates that were proceeding, it was about 1.3 million, but monitors and fuel obviously weren't used at all. So that brings it down to about $1,019,000.
Thank you. And your assessment of the fixed costs that we've been presented from the transportation company, they are relevant, they are realistic based on what you've seen so far?
Based on what I've seen and know so far, we need to still sit down with the company and, if with the authorization to move forward, we'd narrow our focus on these numbers.
Okay. I'll be voting in favor of this. Barbara Cabaldo.
Thank you. It's Barbara Cabaldo. My understanding then is this is an adjusted balance from the bus company from a much higher total. And my understanding, of course, is that you did sign a contract. This is a contract piece, and they're trying to keep their citizens and their employees hired and paid and their families sustained. So I think I agree with Lisa's suggestion that I think you can go into this and do a little more research before you pay. There is no outrageous hurry as far as I can tell. And you might find with the way that you are organizing your students that if indeed students are going to school 3 days a week and then home for 2, that you might be able to have quite a bit of flexibility in the new contract. But overall, I agree with Craig's friends at the barbershop that you signed a contract and they are trying to keep their employees alive and well and kicking and having their families supported. So I don't see where you have much of a I don't think you have a way to get around this. And the 300,000 out of $1.3 million is pretty reasonable for an adjusted balance. I really will not tell you whether I think you should vote for it or against it, but I do think you have time, and you should take a look at this and understand their point of view, because they're trying to protect their employees the same way you're protecting the taxpayers and your employees. So I think it's worth taking a really close look at, and maybe Ned is right, and you can negotiate it a little tighter. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And to that point about negotiating a little tighter, I think Ned implied that there is an additional round of discussion. So the wording of the motion is the authority to pay up to $330,000. So there are further discussions. I have Murat and then another caller. Murat, I can't hear you.
I apologize. I just forgot to lower my hand. I already said what I want to say. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry. We have a caller. Last 4 is 5002.
Hi. Hi, this is Clifford Hale again from Hopkinton. I guess, I mean, I think the way to look at this is that I agree that if there is a contract in place, I guess I just would want to know what the contract wording is and how, you know, what does that outline? And if it's not explicitly stated in this one, then our hands might be tied and we may have no choice. But I would just urge that as we move forward, I mean, this next school year, we may be faced with these same issues, and you know, may not be this year, may not just be this year, maybe the next couple of years, that we might want to consider putting some wording into the contract that explicitly lays this out so that there's contingency plans put in place and that we're not faced with, you know, being strong-armed into paying for a service that we didn't necessarily have provided. But the other part of this is if the state is requiring a transportation plan to be included with the reopening plans, then I think we need to really try to, and maybe this isn't possible, but I would prefer that this vote be held off for now until we could address this issue with RIDE in the state. I mean, they're making these mandates, and these towns are doing the best they can to come up with these plans to get kids back in school. You know, we shouldn't be fighting with bus companies while we're trying to do what's right at the same time. So, again, I don't know if that's possible. I don't know how much time we have, but I think that if you could hold off and pursue this at the state level, and you know, and if the bus company really is strong arming this school, then you know, we should let, you know, this is the first time I've heard of this, and maybe this is the first time everyone else has heard about it, but we need to let the public know that these bus companies are pulling things like this in, you know, a very difficult and unusual time. And when we're all trying to do the best we can to return to some level of normalcy and get our children a decent education, the last thing we need is companies trying to profit off of this. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Lisa Macruso.
So I want to circle back to some of my thought process, and it seems like this is going to pass, and that's okay, right? That's okay. I think regardless of whether it passes or we table it, the transportation subcommittee should convene to advise the superintendent and the school committee. That's why we have that subcommittee, so that we can look more deeply. And those on that committee have some history with this particular bus company, right? We've worked through issues for the 6 years I've been here. So I think that's something we need to do. I want to believe that we are in partnership with the bus company to safely transport our children, right? We're partners in this. I don't want to be adversarial. However, when RIDE says we must, and then the bus company is doing the right thing for their business and saying, well, then you must, I just think there's an opportunity here for us to stand up and say, well, then you must give us our transportation aid back, right? The thing that we fight for every year after the fact. We do the best thing, we pass everything, and then we go beg for the money afterwards. So I just wonder if there is an opportunity here for us to posture a little bit as well for the transportation aid that we have to beg, all of our representatives to go and scrounge up for us every year. So that's why I'm on this. I'm going to vote no, but it's not a protest vote. It's not an adversarial vote. It's a pause for a second. And if RIDE says, okay, then you have 72 more hours, or you have one more week to come up with a plan, well, then you call the subcommittee together and we ask some deeper, harder questions around, okay, well, what about the transportation aid? How about now? Can you help us? What are we going to do? Everyone's posturing. I just want us to posture a little bit too.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Okay. I'm going to close discussion. We have a motion and a second to approve the district to give them authority to pay up to $330,000 to cover fixed costs of our transportation needs for the spring of 2020. Those in favor of approval? All right. Those opposed? I see Lisa. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a good count on that, so thank you. I got Lisa. Who else is opposed? George? Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I must recuse.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, Bill. All right, so we have 2 opposed. We have Bill recusing. Do we have any abstentions? Thank you, everyone. Motion carries. This concludes the business section. This brings us up to consent agenda items. I'd like to know from the committee who needs what pulled.
A1 and 2, Chair.
A1, A2, got it.
Bill? I'd like a little clarification on Northeast Water Solutions. That's a bill of June 25th. On page 3 of 5 is $18,000 worth of itemized bills here, and I just don't know what Northeast Water Solutions has to do with purchase property services of middle school, high school.
Okay.
Charleston.
So that's section letter C, right? Bill review?
Yes, bill review.
Okay, so we'll pull A1, A2, and C. Any other committee members need something pulled?
Chair?
Yes, Craig?
Do you feel that we should pull F1 and do it separately?
No, it's part of consent, but.
Okay, because we do have some people on the computer with us that their names are on it.
Oh,
Correct, but it's voted
Fair
as
enough.
a consent.
Fair
Okay. Donna Chambers?
yeah, I have a question on H1, so I would like to pull that
Okay, H1.
one.
Thank you. Any other items to be pulled by the committee? Okay, so I have A1, A2, C, and H1 pulled.
Chair, I make a motion to move the remainder.
Second.
I'm going to treat that as so moved and seconded from Linda Lyle and Donna Chambers. The remainder has been moved. Those in favor? Aye. Do we have any opposed? Any abstentions? Recusals? No. Okay, thank you. The remainder carries. This brings us to A1.
I make a motion to approve A1.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. So we have a motion by Catherine, a second by Donna Chambers to approve A1, which is the executive session minutes of June 16th, 2020. This is open for discussion. No discussion. I'm closing discussion. Moving the vote to the floor. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
I abstain.
Abstaining. Craig.
Luzon.
Craig Luzon's abstaining. Do we have any opposed or opposition or recusals? No? Okay, thank you. This brings us to A2, which is the regular session minutes of June 16th, 2020.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the regular session minutes of June 16th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is second. It was seconded by Catherine. Motion made by Craig. Discussion. I see a hand. Clay?
Yeah, that's me. So there is a note in here that I seconded the approval for the budget, which means that Donna wrote down CJ instead of CG. I'm totally fine with it staying the way it is, but I just wanted Catherine to have the opportunity to have that second if she wanted it. Thanks.
Thanks, Clay. Donna, your hand up. Is that previous? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Closing this, moving this to vote. Those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Recusal? So that's a unanimous vote in favor? No? I'm seeing a head shake. Craig?
No,
You're abstaining?
Yes, that's a yes.
Okay, thank you. Letter C, bill
Chair-
review.
Chair, I make a motion to approve C, bill review.
Thank you. Motion made by Craig, seconded by Donna Chambers. This is open for discussion. Mr. Day?
Yes, I just, I don't know, it seems like it's a strange Northeast Water Solutions land improvements at Charleston School, Ashaway Middle School, you know, for a tune of $18,000. I'm just curious as to what kind of service we're getting from Northeast Water that would have land improvements.
Thank you. Ned, is that something you can talk to, sir?
Yes, and I'll qualify this with I'm just learning my way around the district and the fact that you have a lot of wells serving all your schools, and there's different issues that come with those wells. This actually applies to all locations. You have agreements for serving each of them. It's per agreement, baseline system inspections, operating and maintenance services on the water systems. So that would be an ongoing maintenance of each well. And then it looks like there is a variety of services at the Charlestown location to specifically work on well 2, sampling, flushing. Looks like there was a variety of services at well 2 and 3. So it looks like it's an ongoing maintenance of all the wells at each school location and some specific attention at Charlestown to take care of some specific issues at wells 2 and 3.
Well, I was just land improvements, you know, doesn't really make me understand that it was working on the wells. When, you know, and it's just we don't approve these these bills anymore. But I'd like to know what I'm paying for. So maybe there's a different way of posturing some of this information. You know, because these wells are only on the there's no wells on the Hope Valley of the Richmond campus. So that's why they're not in here. But
Yep.
I just think that the possibility it could be maybe just a little bit more detail. As land improvements tells me nothing about Charleston School. I'm thinking that maybe they put in a new lawn over there or something along that line. So it's just my concern. I wouldn't ask the question if I understood the bill better.
Understood. And as I learn the systems, I'm working with Sue now to understand the systems. One of the things you understand is they're broken out into 2 pieces. One is the buildings, which contains everything within the envelope of a building. And then the land improvements deals with everything on the site. So I'm gonna work with Sue to better understand how that's communicated.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ned. Thanks, Bill. Any further discussion on C? No, in that case, we have a motion and a second to approve or accept, the bill review. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions or recusals? Oh, I'm counting that as unanimous then. Thank you. This brings us to H1, permission to award contracts, and there's a recommendation to approve.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve H1, the Richmond Intercom contract.
Thank you.
I second it, but I
Thank you.
had a question
Motion made
about
by
it.
Craig.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So motion made by Craig, seconded by Donna Chambers. This is open for discussion. Donna, the floor is yours.
Yeah. My question, and I think it's to you, Ned, but we needed an additional $23,000, and the money is being transferred from the Ashaway lift. And does that deplete the possibility of having the lift in Ashaway? Because, you know, I don't know what how essential that is. Are we eliminating that need?
No, it's not that we're eliminating the need. What's going on is there's a capital budget for the lift. The ongoing maintenance of the lift continues. We recognize that long-term it's going to need to be replaced. However, we're going to be taking a look at ADA issues along with the necessity for school construction.
Okay.
That'll be wrapped into a bigger question
Okay.
about how we handle all of the schools. So I think it's prudent now to move forward with the things we know we need to do, and then we can hold on the things that may be wrapped into a larger approach.
Okay, thanks, Ned. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
So we vote on it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions on this topic? I see now. Well, so we have a motion and a second to approve H1. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Abstaining or recusals? Okay. This brings us to reports.
So the first subcommittee report is on June 25th, 2020 for the necessity for school construction committee. Attached are their approved minutes for their meeting on June 11, 2020. I was not here, so, but the minutes are there for your review.
Thank you. And next up is the superintendent's report.
Donna has her hand up.
Sorry, Donna.
I don't have the report in front of me, but when I read through it, there's some action that we have to take by a certain date if we are going to go forward. And there are two options.
Let me touch on that. Yeah, I can touch on that. So you're right. There's a couple of dates in terms of to meet our obligations with the state and under the newer and fewer rule setting. We have a meeting next week with RGB to align on what they're going to present to the school committee at our next meeting, which is the I see it down here, it's 21st. So on the 21st, you'll get an update of the work that the Necessity for School Construction Committee has undergone to date. You'll see feedback from the demographer's report, the list of capital projects that have been identified by the engineering team in terms of what our brick and mortar structures need. You'll also see a summary of the options going forward with respect to how we handle those capital projects, and it will touch on, it's a broad range. It's either maintaining our existing infrastructure as it is, and just kind of through those capital projects, as well as some ideas in terms of changing our existing brick and mortar structures for the future. So you'll be able to see those and talk to the team and RGB and hear more about it. And I hope all the folks that are on this call tonight join for that. Should be a good discussion.
And Ryan, that means that the actions, that whether we take them in June or January, at that point we'll have that, we'll be able to make that decision on that, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We will.
Yeah.
Bill? I can't hear you, sir. I think you're muted.
That meeting will be a virtual meeting. There'll be an email sent out on how to access the meeting.
Yes, sir. So it's going to be our school committee meeting.
For
the 21st.
Oh, 21st. Okay. I apologize.
Yeah. No, you good. Any other questions on that? I expect a robust discussion that evening. Should be interesting. This brings us to reports, letter B.
Okay, so this is the superintendent's report, and the first item is the reopening update. We have a larger update will be prepared for the general meeting on July 21st because we'll have more of the plan fleshed out. But I just wanted to let you know where we were to date. We have over 60 members on subcommittees that have been working feverishly over the last 10 days. And I know huge thank you to our teachers, our parents, our students, our admins, our community members, Linda Lyle for participating as well in that subcommittee work. This is not the summer anyone ever anticipates. Usually you get at least a few days, but when I tell you that top of mind for reopening of schools, the Charahoe faculty staff, support staff, teachers, educators, admins have stepped up. They are working around the clock to do what's best for their staff, to do what's best for their students, to really think about how their peers and colleagues will come back to do what's best for our children. So I'm very impressed about the work that's happened and the collaboration that takes place, the feedback, the thoughtful solutions, and the really thinking outside the box to try to make this work. With that said, and I have the list of who's on every subcommittee, so I plan on sending that out to all of you in the Friday update, as well as a letter to all our families, teachers, and admins as this is to date where we are tomorrow. A family survey went out last week, and I gave you a little bit of highlights on that, where the majority of our families, over 75%, would like us to reopen schools and feel that while the school district did a very good job with distance learning, that there were challenges, but also we also have to be planning for 3 phases. So we're planning for full open per the RIDE requirement and the state's requirement for August 31st. However, we also have been required by RIDE to institute a limited and partial phase-in, which means at the flip of a switch, we have to be ready to go digital. So the teaching and learning team, as well as all the subcommittees, there are 3 subcommittees: school governance and operations, which is basically your facilities, your data, your technology, food services, transportation, school level team planning. You have teaching and learning, and we have health and wellness. Jen Durkin is the lead for health and wellness. Jane is leading teaching and learning, and I'm leading the school governance and operations. And like I said, it's an all hands on deck effort, and we really enjoyed the collaboration and the support from a lot of support staff, teachers, students, parents, community members, and admin. So with that being said, the district does not have the ability to determine the phase-in plan. So we can't say we're going to do partial, we're going to do limited. That comes from the Department of Health per the governor's orders. But we do have to be able to be as flexible and limber. So with that being said, there are some things within the template that we are required to do, but don't have guidance yet. One, we are waiting for the Rhode Island Department of Health, what they're calling the playbook. This playbook will allow us to provide a staff and student attendance plan. So there are things right now where we were told to just place in our template for now, as determined by the Rhode Island Department of Health playbook. So as soon as I get that playbook, I will share that. It should be, once it's uploaded, it should be on the websites, and we will post that on our website for reference for families, but it's not there yet. There are a few requirements that we're looking into that will affect the budget, and Ned and I are keeping track of things that like are very easy as the cleaning supplies with the request and how we have to do that, as well as one of the requirements is assessing staff wellness in an ongoing manner, and we're looking into employee assistance programs that will provide us that diagnostic. So we're figuring out ways to be able to handle that work on top of the school level plans. We've made some shifts because we have not been able to receive certain answers from the Department of Ed because they're waiting on the governor, the commissioner, and the Department of Health. We've had to make some shifts in our expectations around what we can share because we don't have had all the information. An example of that is what we'll do is the school teams and the way they've just selected their members on the school teams is their sits. So because the school improvement teams, there was a lot of effort put into that work. They're already part of the planning. The school admins were asked to leverage those teams as their school level teams to provide support and guidance as they manage the school level plans. The plans are due for feedback to all the subcommittees tomorrow. So that'll go out tomorrow afternoon. So the committees have the weekend to review, to provide feedback and comments to the subcommittees who can then make shifts and changes for the plan before it goes to RIDE. RIDE has hired a consulting group, which if we can get our plan flush out as much as possible by Wednesday, we can share that with the consulting group who then will offer another lens of feedback if that's something we have ready for Wednesday. It is a tight turnaround, and I have been meeting with superintendents in Coventry and South County and Westerly, South Kingstown. So we're working together every week to really think through what this looks like. But you will see that the idea would be that once we have the plans and the feedback, our plan is to then have individual meetings with families from each elementary, middle, and high school with myself, Jane, and the school admin, so they can ask questions and get comments, as well as with all the faculties from each school. So that will happen once we have a better idea where we land with the plan so that we can get additional feedback even after RIDE, so we can be thoughtful about. The idea is we're going to need flexibility. This is new for all of us, and know that as much as we're going to tell you there's a plan, we are going to be meeting, and we are meeting weekly, but when school opens, we will continue those meetings to think about what's going well, what's working, what's not working, and how do we make changes. You will very much likely see certain schools do a little bit things a little bit differently because of the way, for example, morning arrival and pickup have to look. And we think that's okay. We're asking our admins and our teachers and our staff to think about this as an action research plan. And it's okay sometimes to try different things. And if we have more than one great plan, that's excellent. If one plan is working better than others, then we can scale that one up across the district in order to do what's best for everyone. We're waiting on transportation. Like I told you before, the guidance from RIDE saying that the Department of Health should be having that update hopefully by tomorrow. We're anticipating, they're thinking they'll allow more students on a bus. Right now it is 1 per seat. But overall, that's the big picture. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I know Jane's on the call, but but I'm happy to take questions from any member of the committee. I see.
Donna?
Yeah, Gina, is there any glimmer of hope for having some sort of testing on site of the kids so that we could have a better handle on who might be positive? Is there any talk about testing on site?
That's an interesting question because there was some feedback given today, not guidance, but more like superintendents talking and hearing things.
Yeah.
Right now, the guidance says we have to have the self-attestation form. So that means that our families would be saying, by sending my child to school or placing my child on a bus, I'm affirming that in fact they don't have these symptoms. So we're asking that they test at home. However, just today from other superintendents across the South County region, a few people have heard from different members that they know that we may have to think about a way to track if in fact verify like via the app. We might want to use PowerSchool because that's something that we use for all our families to say Ms. Picard goes into the PowerSchool and then clicks I verified that the self-attestation form has been completed. The question we had, Kristen Danusis is our point of contact for RIDE for the opening of schools. She's been on our meeting. She was there this morning with us. We've asked her to get clarification on if that means, one, is that a waiver? Is that quarterly? Is that daily? What happens if if mom didn't do it? Are we tracking down the student? Are we testing? So she said that RIDE is creating an FAQ and this playbook. This is all supposed to be in that guidance. So right now, what I know is the guidance is self-attestation form. However, there may have to be some kind of monitoring by thermometer. But that's the first I've heard of it today, and that hasn't been verified.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Craig.
So Gina, is the state or the governor's office or the Department of Health, are they posing anything where we're going to possibly have to hire more employees?
Well, part of the budgeting plan is, do we anticipate an increase of staff? One of the things that Kristen and I have to do is talk with our custodial union because a lot of the requests from the school level plans and our requests from our teacher teams and the subcommittees is that with one custodian on during the day, a lot of this cleaning is going to be nearly impossible. So what does that look like? So Ned and I have been tracking those kinds of requests to see, is it possible to move the first more custodians to the first shift, to have 2 custodians during the day? What does that look like in the budget? We are, in our Excel grants, they did give us a form. We have until October, I believe, to provide all these additional costs that could come to a district because of COVID and to request money in return because of this need. I know RIDE is also tracking sort of what we're requesting for supplies. Our understanding is they may be thinking about and Ned can probably add, I know the RIASBO group is talking about, they've had meetings with the governor's office where they're thinking maybe the state will purchase and then provide us those supplies because as you know, we're all gonna be competing for the same things. And we want to open schools, but if we don't have the supplies necessary, that would not be possible. And right now, we've ordered things in the district prior to May, and they haven't arrived.
It's funny you should say that because looking at one of my emails a couple weeks back, there was a spam and it made reference to the fact of the state of Texas for their schools ordered 550 million face masks. So Just an observation.
Brian, I have to caution everybody, this is reports. We cannot go into a great deal of discussion or we will be in violation.
Understood.
Okay?
Thanks.
I know George.
Thanks, Donna. Appreciate it. I see. Okay, George, you have a question on the report?
Yes, so I just wanted to make sure that adequate supplies of PPE will be addressed.
Yep, the nurses
That's
are
it.
also on the teams and they're advising as well as, and Dr. Manlove, our district physician, is on the subcommittee with myself and is working closely with the nurses.
I know the last time that I requested an inventory, it didn't include the inventory of the athletic department as I saw it. So could you make sure that their supplies are also included?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila Grover, did you have a question?
No, I'll actually address it at another time.
Thank you. Okay. No further questions on that from the group here. This brings us to school committee requests for future agenda items or legal opinions. Lisa, and then George.
Okay, yes, so for our next meeting, we didn't have a recognition section today, but meeting, I'd like to recognize the students, the Charahoe High School students that organized a very successful peaceful Black Lives Matter protest on June 8th. There's been no recognition of that other than in the Sun. So I would like us to do that as a school committee. And I think that those students should be offered the superintendent pin, the Charahoe pin that we offer to all of our other students that make. Separately, discussion item, I'd like to begin a conversation on Charahoe's anti-racist action plan. Or the development of.
Okay. Anything else on that one?
May I just ask if Lisa has a list of names for recognition? I do not have a list. Bill did recognize them at one of our meetings. They were recognized, but I do not have a list of the students who were the ones who were responsible for.
So it's in the newspaper. I can look at that. I'm hoping that Mr. McKenzie and Andrea Spaz, they were high school students, that they should be known to us, to the
Well,
their
I did see the
administration.
newspaper, Lisa, but I don't know if that includes all of them, and I don't want to leave anybody out.
I agree.
Yeah.
So that was organized through the Charahoe High School. So hopefully we can get some resources there. That's exactly the point, Donna. That's exactly the point. We should know who these students are and recognize them for what they've done.
Well, Bill did bring it up. It didn't go into detail about their names, but he did recognize them under recognition.
And so, thanks.
Lisa, I'll just say that that event was not organized to the high school. They made us aware that they were doing it, and we were glad to support it. But I can take advantage of the opportunity to identify, to make sure that we recognize all the students. I'd like to do that as well. Thank you.
George Abbott. Can't hear you, sir.
I'd like a report from the Northeast Water Solutions, Inc. concerning their work and findings. And I have one more. For discussion at the next meeting, I'd like to, just a general discussion as to when the necessity of construction subcommittee will evolve into a building committee.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Clay.
So I'd like to start a discussion on what we've called in the past an efficiency study. I'm actually less interested in an efficiency study or a contract for an efficiency study. but more on what we discussed in terms of questions that each of the members on the committee might have for a consultant, and to collect that stuff and consider what do we want to actually think about. So I don't know how to title that other than efficiency study.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Bill Day.
This isn't really a request. It's just a concern that I have here, and I wanted to bring it up now. On the necessity of school construction committee meeting, it notes here that an update on the focus groups. It noted that the high school and the career track were not well represented in this, and you know, I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the fact that the high school and the career and tech were not representative in their school action safety plan. So I'm hoping this is not going to be something going forward with these two buildings in a district, because these are important things that they should be involved in. And I just want everybody to be aware of the fact that I'm going to be keeping my eyes open on these things here about them participating or not participating. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine.
I don't know when we want to start the discussion about how we're going to be meeting in the future as the state opens things up a little bit more. So this may or may not be something for the next meeting, but I'd like to discuss how we can continue, once we start meeting in person again, the Zoom aspect to our meetings. I think what we've seen with Zoom is participation levels 3 and 4 times what they typically are when we're sitting in the library. So maybe at some point we can discuss how we can continue to incorporate Zoom even after we're meeting in person.
Okay. Thank you. And Donna.
Yeah, we had discussed looking at some of our policies in light of the reopening, and Gina, I would leave it up to you, but I am concerned about the homeschooling policy, and if we can look at that and consider it in a way that's different now that we have parents that may want to keep their kids at home. So it doesn't have to be at the next meeting, but if we could roll that into the whole opening and looking at specifically at the policy. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any further requests for future agenda items or legal opinions? Oh, thank you.
You ready, Chair?
Brings us up. Yes.
You are ready. You look like you're ready.
I am.
Before I make my motion, just a shout out to Linda Lyall. Your backdrop is fantastic. Thank you very much. I was watching Carlton Fisk hit a home run in the 12th inning. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Craig and seconded pretty much by everybody. But I think I'll link it to Murat. Did I hear you say that, Murat? Sounded.
Thank you.
We got it.
Sure.
All right. Those in favor of the motion to adjourn? Aye. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Good night,
next time.
all.
Night.
All right.
Stay
Be
safe.
safe.